Right, cool. Fuck the intro. I was getting a bit live to myself, and I'm just going to talk about it. If you start seeing this shake, it's because I'm shaking my leg. My hands are on the desk, and it's obviously shaking. Right. Anyway, to the point of this video, okay. And obviously, I haven't watched loads of them, but I am fully aware that Bear People are going to be making videos about Black Lives Matter and the kind of the whole of the situation that's going on. That's what this hopefully short video will be about. It might not be short. I don't really know. But my point is, right, is that what's happening in the world at the moment, obviously, it's fucked. Everybody knows it's fucked. I'm going to turn my other monitor on so the lighting's a little bit better. My screen's gone black, but whatever, I don't give a fuck. There you go. I'm going to move that over there. So there you go. Yeah. But basically, right, this is what I think needs to happen. If you weren't aware, if you've been living under a rock, what's happened is there is a policeman in America who, for some ungodly reason, thought it was a good idea to put his knee on top of a man called George Floyd's neck, and it killed him after about 8 minutes. That's the kind of the general story. And the policeman's been done for murder. Obviously, he killed a man, right? And the whole this is where this is what annoys me the most. Obviously, because if my camera goes out, the point isn't what you see, it's just what you're hearing. This is what annoys me the most, right? It took me one Google search. I understand that's not a lot of research, but from one Google search, what I found was that supposedly this guy, Derek Chauvin, this should be fucking Derek Cunt, mate, but sorry if anyone doesn't like that word, but this man has been involved with so many different race problems, basically. Let me have a, because now I've lost it, because I need to have a look. But basically what I saw was this guy has been complained against like 17 to 18 times, and he's been punished maybe like twice. Like he got given a reprimand. I'll be honest, I don't really know 100% what that means, but like basically he's been complained against. He was involved with like shooting of other people, like and they were all some sort of minority in America, right? I can't even find it because I got rid of it because I had to sort my stuff out. But he's been involved with so many other things, right? Where it was a problem from day one, and something bad was bound to happen. Lo and behold, something bad happened, right? All it took to stop the problem was if you see one thing that he's done wrong that isn't within some sort of, you could probably say guidelines, right? That isn't within those sort of guidelines. That's it. It doesn't matter. Like when you're in such a role where your job is to protect humans, like you're in such a high priority role where people are going to rely on you with their life, right? And if you jeopardize that once, twice at the absolute most, that should be it. You're obviously not fit for the job. For whatever reason that you've ruined it, right? You're obviously not fit for that job. You're not good enough. You don't deserve to be in a position of authority. And the problem starts stemming when the higher ups in those places, so the higher ups in the police, don't do anything about the people who think they have all the authority in the world to go around and kill people, essentially, or be involved with the killing of people when their position is to stop people killing people. It's part of the job, right? So what? Yeah, the main problem is after it's done once or twice, they should be out straight away. Don't deserve to be in a position of authority in the slightest, right? And what I think should be put in place, and this isn't just an America thing. Obviously, like people are fully aware this is happening in England as well. And well, I'd say they're happening in other places. You obviously don't hear it, and when it comes to like the hate, like I don't know, like I guess like race crimes, but police brutality, right? What I'm on about is what's happened in America. Obviously, it sparked the whole situation, and it like people are fully aware it happens around the world, and what needs to be put in place, right, is if you work at like where I used to work, one of my jobs, we had a comp test every month, a competency test, right, to make sure that you still know what you're doing, and you know what's not what's right and wrong, but you're fully aware of the job role and what like kind of what you need to do, right? It just make sure you're competent enough to work. I couldn't tell you what happens if you got like a lower score because there wasn't anything to do with like morals, but you know it was a job to make sure you're still aware and that you're alert basically, right? What I think they should do is the exact same thing for anybody in a position of authority, right? And they should be basically like moral tests, and if you fail this moral test, it like you're out. That's it. And they what they can do. This is my theory, and this is like my train of thought. So they bring back these moral tests, right? Not bring back, but they start doing moral tests. And if, let's say, a policeman, let's say Mr. Smith, answers the question, and after he answers the question, he then goes out and does the complete opposite to what the answer he's put down as, fired straight away. Not allowed to be any position of authority. No manager jobs, no police jobs, no authority jobs, no government jobs, whatever. Anything like that, he is gone. He is out. Like, there shouldn't be so many complaints held against someone for them to do something. Because if, obviously, right, you have to kind of weigh like what warrants something for it to be like a complaint where someone should be penalised for it, right? If someone said, oh, like this policeman said this and that to me, tiny bit different. Obviously, it can still have bad effects, but like you're not physically affecting someone's life, right? But if if you heard straight away this policeman was involved in killing or like he was overly restraining of certain people, right? Like they could be the same race, they could be the opposite race, they could be a different race that doesn't exist at the moment. It doesn't matter. What matters is how that person is doing their job and how they are portraying themselves and how they are portraying the rest of their team, you know, the police department. And it needs to, like, they need to look at that and think, is this what we want on our team? Is this how we want the message? Because what's going to happen, right, is he's going to do that. And then a recruit's going to come in. The recruit might go with him, and he's going to do that in front of the recruit, and the recruit's going to be there like, yeah, that's fine, I can do that. If I'm the police, then it's fine. If he's doing it, I'm going to go do it. And that cycle is going to keep fucking continuing, right? So what happens is as soon as that happens once, that person needs to be gone. No hesitation, anything. You need to look at it, it needs to be gone. If people are making loads of complaints, you really need to put that person in review. There is no, we'll let you off this time, we'll punish you this time. 18, 17, whatever complaints, I'm going to have a look for it while I'm talking. But that many complaints against one person over the same, because it's going to piss me off. That one person making so many, have had so many complaints against him. Here we go. He had 18, so I'm looking, I don't know how reliable CNN is. But I'm looking, and it said he had 18 prior complaints against him. Before he knelt on Floyd's neck, Chauvin, whatever his name is, was the subject of 18 prior complaints filed against him with the Minneapolis Police Department's internal affairs. Police confirmed the complaints were filed, but didn't detail why they were filed, or what they entailed, right? Only 2 of the 18 complaints were closed with discipline. I'm rereading how it is. According to the Minneapolis Police Department Internal Affairs Public Summary. In both cases, Chauvin received a letter of reprimand. And for anyone else who's like me, who doesn't know what reprimand means, I'm going to search it now. A formal expression of disapproval. Right? So he wasn't in trouble, he basically just got a slap on the wrist. as a policeman, he got a slap on the wrist for having 18 complaints against him. Let's have a look. According to Communities Against Police Brutality, a Minnesota non-profit that created a database of complaints against officers in the state, Chauvin received oral reprimands for using a demeaning tone, derogatory language, and other language that merited discipline. Right, so he's using his power, and he's got the head the size of bloody the moon. Right, that's how big-headed this guy is. So he's going around and he's abusing his power, and he's talking like what I kind of mentioned earlier, where he's talking to people in a way that he's above them, that he feels that he's above them, and that they're not like worthy, basically. And that's what's happening. That's where the problems start, because it only takes for him to talk so much for him to actually start acting upon it, and that someone else is actually below him. And where they're a civilian and he's a policeman, there's almost that line where he can do something to them, but if they do it to him, that is then his cue to do it to them. So it's like he might do it anyway, so he might start off by doing it, but then that person can't and you know, kind of understandably why, like a civilian shouldn't be trying to restrain a policeman. That doesn't make sense, because the policeman is trying to protect everyone else. It's not the civilian's job to protect people, it's the policeman's job. But then if the policeman starts taking that job too far and starts instead of protecting people, starts attacking people, literally like he's done here, and like that's when these problems start arising. They need to put something in place to avoid not even hiring these people, because you can hire anyone. No, like this guy wasn't a criminal until this, basically, because obviously where he'd done loads of things, but he'd never got done for it at all. Now he's in jail, so now he's a criminal. You need to make sure that people who are already in the job are not going to do this. That is so simple. You need, like, if things like this keep happening, when you look at the list of names of people who have been victim of police brutality in the UK and the US, like specifically, because that's where a lot of the attention is on at the moment, especially being in the UK. I'm gonna hear about all the UK news. But when you see the list of names who have been victims of police brutality, race or no race, you need to start questioning the people who are working in the police. You can't deflect the blame to anyone else, because it's the police who are killing people. People aren't committing suicide and blaming the police. The police are killing these people, right? They're dying. There are people who are losing their lives to the people who are supposed to protect them. Like, where is the sense in that? Something needs to be put in place. These protests, these obviously not people rioting, those guys need to fuck off as well. But the people who are silent, like the peaceful protest, sorry, not silent protest. Peaceful protest is a good start, right? But people we need to get the message to the people in charge. Whether it's the head of police, whether it's the government, Boris Johnson, Donald Trump, doesn't matter who, somebody needs to do something. Something has to be done. Like, we can't go our entire lives just accept it. Like, and my mind has been changed, like, very recently. Before, I used to think that, like, oh, it's never going to change. Like, no matter what happens, racism will always be around. And I do stand by that. I do think racism will never die. It might get to the point where it's so minuscule people kind of don't see it anymore, but it will always be alive. It's just one of those things. When something like slavery was happening, hundreds of years ago, that knowledge of generation is gonna take centuries for it to be dropped, right? People have only become way more sensitive in the last 10 years, maybe. Not even that, maybe even less than that, right? And that's kind of what social media has done. But trying not to stray away from my point, it's that things like this are going to happen for as long as higher ups allow it. The best way I can describe this, and this isn't me starting to deflect racism onto other races, because that's only going to worsen the situation. But when you look at history, you see obviously where what was usually white men were in charge of black people, not even men or women. They were just in charge of people. Like you can't say, oh, you're being racist, or you're being you're discriminating against white people. I'm not. All I'm doing is just looking at how it used to be. There might have been other races in charge of other races. That's fine. But what I'm on about at the moment is white people. It's not even, to be fair, it's barely, not even barely even white men. It is predominantly, at the time, it was white men. But I'm assuming white people were above black people, and that was the norm. And that has been the norm for a very, very long time. And it's only changed, I think it's only properly changed within the last maybe 40, 50 years or something. Actually, when you look at people who are... So I'm 21, and when I see someone who's 80... in their 80s, that's the time that they grew up in. They grew up where blacks and whites don't mix, where they didn't belong in the same society. But now, where things have changed so much, that's not how it is. That's not how people think anymore. On a general basis, the only people that think like that were the people who have parents who have now passed that knowledge down to their kids, and their kids don't want to, not they don't want to change, but maybe they haven't got the capacity to change. Maybe that's how they grow up, so that's how they're always going to see it, right? But people need to adapt, and people need to change with the times. No matter if you like it or not, this world is changing. At the moment it's this. 50 years later it's going to be something else. It's all the world is always going to evolve and change, and people need to get with the change. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you need to get with the change. Doesn't matter how old you are, how you were brought up, you need to get with the fucking change. This is the world. This is life, unfortunately, mate. You don't like it, whatever. You can't do anything. You're one person out of 7+ billion. You need to wake up, smell the roses, smell the flowers, mate, and realise that those flowers aren't flowers anymore. They're bloody trees. You have to change as a person to be able for everybody to be able to benefit. And I'm not saying every single person in this world has to change. They kind of do. But it needs to be a significant enough amount of people to make a difference to the higher-ups, right? Kind of back to my point. If you look at the people who are older, who grew up with the thoughts that certain races and minorities are below because that's the way it was, or they're different, so they get treated differently because that's the way it was, and that's the way it was for their parents, and they've passed that knowledge to them. Those are the people. If you let's be real, right? Let's look at the Houses of Parliament. How many white heads with white hair do you see? Tell me. Genuinely, right? I'm gonna search Houses of Parliament. I want you to search it as well, because I want you to see. I want you to see and look at a picture of the inside of that place, or Houses of Parliament. Yeah, I want you to see all the people that are sat down in there, and I just want people to name how many minorities they can see. Not black people, minorities, Mexican, Hispanic, or anything. I'm looking at a picture right now. I see nothing but white people. I see nothing but older white people, and it's not that white people are the problem. It's that that's how it was, and that's how they grew up, and that's how they might have seen things, right? But that generation is long gone past, and it's going to pass, and it needs to pass quicker. It needs to be over, right? What you should have in there is what you could have in there is a section dedicated to people who are over a certain age. What's stopping people from doing that? And that's not ageist, or once you reach a certain age, you've passed it, your rules should change. But they should have that in the place where then certain things, because things are changing, things need to be different. So if you have all these people who are 70, 80 voting for how, oh, it should be the way it was, where minorities weren't as good as whites, or this race wasn't as good as that race, or this sexuality wasn't good as this sexuality, and you should be straight, whatever. Like, and when you look at it, everybody's been discriminated against. Everyone. But I want you to tell me when a time in history where being a white male was a bad thing, right? Like, at any point, being a woman was a bad thing. It still can be a bad thing. People are like, they're witnessing this now. Being so when you look at it, there's man, there's woman, and there's other genders, whatever. But what I'm looking at is man and woman. Being a man at one point was better than being a woman. That's half of everything. So being a woman, already at a disadvantage. Now let's look at just being a man, right? Being black, disadvantage. Hispanic, disadvantage. Hispanic, anywhere, basically, that wasn't white at some point, you've had your history has had a disadvantage. Black people have been disadvantaged, women were disadvantaged, and anyone that isn't white male has been disadvantaged. And that's not me saying all white males are a problem, because they're not. Believe it or not, I have friends that are white male. I'm joking. But that's how it's always been, and it needs, what you see in authority needs to be different. That's why obviously you see loads of people who are celebrating like women CEOs and black CEOs and Latinos and any other minority. I'm sure there's loads. Asians, bloody Russians, European, anything, right? Maybe not European as much because most of them are white. Like, I'm looking at colour, basically. Colour and gender. But when you, that's not to say that they haven't, I don't care, I'm not getting into that. I'm going to tangent off. But that's not it just needs to be, there needs to be more diversity in power, in authority, in actual government places. Obviously becoming like a manager in a job and being a minority is an accomplishment. It's an accomplishment within yourself. But when you look at that realistically, what difference do you make outside of that job? Right? Like, you're let's say you're the manager at your branch of I don't know, your insurance company, right? And you are a black person, or you're a woman, and you're in charge of the entire building, right? Let's say you're that person. If you do something there, you can help that building, and that's not to discredit anyone who is already in that position, because you've done something that, 50, 100 years ago was seen as impossible. You're a minority and you are in charge, right? You have power. But when you look at the big picture, the big picture, right? Something like that, something I've done is minuscule. Like, people won't notice it because I'm just at work. That's normal. But when you look at the big picture, when you look at the people who are in charge of the country, not the ones who are just in charge of like a business or like a building or a branch or even like a company. When you look at the people who are in charge of the country, who make decisions for the country, the thing there where everybody lives regardless of what you are, right? When you look at those are the ones where black people and I don't keep needing to say black people, but I'm black, so it's instinct. But those are the places where minorities should be aiming for, right? And I'm not saying me, because I don't feel like I've got the brain to do it. I can chat all I want, but it takes someone who's like a real thinker who's actually fit for the job, right? And that's where minorities need to aim for. They need to aim to be in charge of the country. Barack Obama did it, right? He was a black man and he was in charge of America, and everyone went crazy. Everyone loved it, right? That was honestly one of the first significant minorities. Well, one of the first minorities to be in real significant power that I know of. Educate me. Tell me I'm wrong. Do it, please. I want to know. But as far as I'm aware, Obama's when you look at the list of minorities who have been in charge, Obama sits right at the top. He was the president of the USA, and he was a black man, right? But that's gone now. Now we're back. Now it's back in charge. Now it's back in the hands of an old white man, being Donald Trump, who is 10 times worse than any other old white man, right? He's a twat. And that's America. That's like the land of the free or whatever. You look at England. No, I want someone to tell me when a black person was in charge of some sort of had some sort of political power. Educate me. Tell me, and I will say yes. I'll say no. I'll look at it. We'll have a conversation. It doesn't matter, right? I want someone to educate me. To where any minority's has had some sort of political power, and they've had some sort of sway or choice that's affected everyone else. Because all I see is white people, if I'm honest. And that's like, again, like they're not at fault. It's the people who are in charge. Whoever's hiring these people, whoever's putting them into this position, they're the ones at fault. And you'll probably find that they're a very similar demographic to the ones that they're putting in these seats. Like, it's so obvious. Like, it's very refreshing to see women inside the House of Parliament. Even if I look at this picture, there isn't loads. I'm going to see if I can put this picture up on the screen at some point, so you'll know what I'm talking about. But there's not a lot of women in this photo. There's a lot of men, and everybody is white from what I can see. If someone can look at this photo and point out any minority, please. My point is that these are the people in charge of the police, and the police are hiring people like Derek Chauvin. However you say his surname, I don't care. He's a very irrelevant human being at the moment. But it's government, police, this guy who's giving these people a bad name. They're only going to help themselves by sorting out everything so they're up here. They're only going to help themselves by sorting everything that's down here. Because if they're there, because at the end of the day, all these rules that we abide by at the moment in the country come down to the government. If it's not the government who's in charge, who's making these rules? Yeah, exactly. It's the government. The government, if they sort out what's happening down here, who are the ones protecting all the civilians, what the only name it's going to give to the government, and it's going to make people stop protesting and being there like, you guys need to sort your shit out, is if they sort these people out, they're like, oh, they can actually hire competent human beings to actually be in charge and protect us. They must be doing something right. There's obviously people there who are thinking about the human race. And it's not all this. It's not just money. It's not this paper shit that you get it and you give it away. That's it. That's how it comes. This is why I turned on the cameraman, because I'm getting live. I'm getting real angry about it. Things need to be put in place by the government, and it needs to be done now. There doesn't need to be any waiting. Test shit, right? Do something. Do it within the next 6 months. Anything. Do it tomorrow. Announce what is going to happen. But you need to do something, right? Nothing is going to happen if you don't do anything. Like the public are speaking. They're shouting at someone to do something. This is me shouting on the internet for someone to do something. People are outside in town. Fuck the virus. We're shouting to do something. Worry about the virus tomorrow. Let's worry about this problem today. Because this is today, and it's been yesterday, and it's going to be tomorrow until someone does something. It's terrible. It's fucking awful. People like this man need to suffer from the death penalty. People in authority who abuse their power need to be made an example of to other people who have the same authority as them. They need to be made an example of. They don't need to be put in prison. Genuinely, people like this man and anyone who thinks that taking someone's life is okay and thinks that being able to abuse your power, people like that need to be shown, they need to be taught a lesson. And it needs to show everyone else who's got that power, they also need to be taught that lesson. People like this need to be made an example of, right? You do something at work, you get fired. If you do something that's detrimental to a customer, let's say you work in a shop and you slap a customer in the face, what happens? Your boss tells you you're out, you're fired. And all you're meant to do is get his things, beep, that's 10 quid. That's all you have to do. You're not trying to protect that person. You're the middleman for their daily life, basically. They go to your shop, they buy something, you scan it, you give it to them because they've paid for it, right? This man is in charge of lives. These people are in charge of lives, sorry. Not this man, these people. And if you work at a shop and you slap someone round the face because you're abusing your power, I work here, I can do what I want, you get fired. If you work in a call centre and you tell a customer to fuck off, you get fired. You've abused your power. If they ask you to do something that's well within your responsibilities at work, and you're there like, nah, I don't want to. I'm not going to. In fact, I'm gonna cancel whatever you wanted me to do. You've abused the fact that you're able to cancel it. You get fired. It's that easy. If they can do that in jobs where you have less authority because it's somebody's life, like something like that, something you do on computer at work. If you work in a call center and you're at work and you do something on computer, that can be corrected, right? If you cancel someone's policy, I'm talking because I work in insurance. If I'm at work and I cancel someone's policy, you can still go in and find that and just put it and just reset it up and just do it again. There's obviously that I would just get fired because they want to stop me from doing it again. If you work in the police and you've done something wrong to the point where you're in trouble, you need to be fired. What is so difficult about it? Like, genuinely, I want to know where the government is struggling to see problems like this, and where instead of fire, like, it gets to the point where you can't fire people individually. You have to look at who have you already hired. Don't put things in place for the new people. Put things in place for the people who are already there. Give a fuck if they like it or not. If they've signed up to a job and things start changing for their job, deal with it. This is change. This is the world. This is the life that you live. You don't like it, you leave. You leave that position of authority. Or you do something. You don't abuse your power and go out taking innocent lives, man. The world is fucked at the moment. 2020 has been such a fucked year. Like, genuinely, like, you see memes, but like, it's actually been like, we thought 2016 was bad, where like famous people were just dropping like flies. This is 10 times worse. Humans as a whole are dropping like flies at the moment. Obviously, they're reproducing loads, but the point is that the coronavirus is happening, and it's this bad. Like, you can't lockdown at the moment. People don't give a fuck. They genuinely don't. And people, as soon as Boris made the speech that people said just didn't make sense, everyone thought, fuck it, it's over. Like, it's done, whatever. I don't have to do anything anymore. I don't have to stay inside. That's wrong. That's so wrong. People need to be made an example of. Right? This is my genuine opinion. Capital punishment. We've got the technology these days to not get it wrong. It's that simple. We've got forensics, we've got cameras, we've got the fingerprints, everything. You can trace back people get caught. People can't hand. Some people they're so riddled with guilt where they just give in. They're like they confess, right? But if we're at the point in the world where we need to bring back killing people for crimes, so fucking be it, right? If someone takes a life, why can't they have their life taken? Why is that not a suitable punishment? Because what I'd imagine, once you'll find, right, once you take one person's life who's taken someone else, everyone's gonna see that and think, shit, I don't want to fucking die. Why would I want to die? Unless you're like suicidal, then I'm not gonna lie. Obviously then you just need some actual help, right? But if you're at the point in your life where you're there like, I'm gonna take someone's life, and I'm gonna get punished, and as soon as my punishment's over, I'm gonna go take another life. That person should have been dead. That person's life should have been taken after the first one. There shouldn't have been you're in jail. There should have been you're in the ground. You're in the sky, you're ashes, whatever. The capital punishment needs to be brought back. Because it will set an example and it will show people the government needs to do something. Capital punishment is an option. Because people need to be made an example of. And that's not being like some crazy, like, I'm going to be power hungry. You need to have the right people in charge, and you need to have the right people calling those shots, basically. And that's where the government needs to change. People in the government need to, because when you look at it, the only people in charge of the government are the government. So if you're in the government, the people in charge of you are the people around you, are the people on the same level, and they'll vote. I assume, because it's not like the Queen's in charge. The Queen doesn't give a fuck about anything. She's sat in her palace on a giant red throne, the fucking $6,000 trillion shoes and a red carpet, and she's like, I'm fucking invincible, mate. I'm the goddamn fucking Queen. But the people who we can see, who are in charge, who set these rules, they need to make an example out of people like this Derek Chauvin guy, Chauvin, whatever. They need to make an example of this man, and people who think what this man have done is okay. You know, if you don't make an example, you're only going to get people who follow his footsteps. The more of an example you make, and it's almost like you almost need to be ruthless with some of these people, right? Because if you're not, people are gonna offend. People are gonna go around and do whatever the fuck that they want to do, because they know the punishment's not that bad. They can just they'll go and do it, and they'll come back, and that person they'll oh, fuck off. I'm so angry. Probably doesn't help. I was playing FIFA earlier, man. Something needs to be done. It's so obvious. This wasn't a well thought out video in the slightest. I turned on the camera because I was getting angry, and what I'm hoping is that this gets seen. People need to see what's so obvious. People just need to open their fucking eyes, if I'm honest. It's something so easy and so simple, but the people in charge don't care. That's what it comes down to. People, they don't care. They're so afraid of jeopardizing their own position and the way that they think, because they're in power, where they don't want to actually do what's right, and they don't want to actually sort out these problems. They think that it's okay. Like, to just allow things like this to happen without real punishments. All in all, bring capital punishment back. Make an example of stupid people like Derek Chauvin, who think it's okay that they can get away with this dumb shit. Justice for George Floyd. Black lives matter. Most lives matter. Derek Chauvin's life doesn't matter to me anymore. Fuck him. Twat.